Hi everyone. In the first section, we will look at basic charts that are available on Excel. In the first lecture, we want to cover the clustered column chart as well as the stat and the 100% column chart. Here we have a simple data set. We have 17 subcategories and the corresponding sales amount. We select the data, click on Insert, and now you notice that there is an entire group of charts available. If you want to click on any one of these, you can simply click on the drop down and it gives you a small window where you can select the chart that you want. If you want to see all the charts in one location, then you can click on the dialog box launcher. You click on see all charts and this opens a window for you. And here you notice that all the different charts that are available can be seen in one place. So let us start with the first one. I personally always like to click on see all charts and not click on any one of these individually. The reason is because I like to see a list of all the charts so that I can pick and choose the one that I want. We will start with the first one, which is our clustered column chart. Now, when the chart appears on the Excel file, at the top, two new tabs will appear, chart design and format. Now remember, these are contextual tabs, which means that if you select any area outside the chart, then those tabs will disappear. So you have to make sure you click on the chart to be able to see these two options, chart design and formatting. Let's understand what options are available in chart design. We have an option to move the chart to a different location. If I don't like the chart type, I can simply click on change chart type. And if you want to select a different data set, you can select data. And then finally, if you want to switch the row and column, you can select this. Let's understand how these work. If I want to move the chart, I can simply click on move chart and it asks me which sheet do I want to copy this chart into. Now remember, you can always copy and paste it or cut and paste it, but this would be a more efficient way of doing this. In change chart type, it opens the same dialog box launcher and from here you can choose a different chart type. When you click on select data, it tells you the data range that you have selected, which is B4 to C21. It tells you that the series legend is the sales amount, and it also gives you a list of all the different access labels that you have selected, which in our case is the 17 subcategories. If you click on edit, you notice I can edit and perhaps only choose 15 subcategories like this. So my chart data range, remember, is from B4 only to C19, right? And again, if you notice now my chart is only showing me 15 subcategories. But imagine you have selected all the 17, but you don't want to show all the 17. For example, maybe you want to hide bookcases, chairs, and envelopes because the amount is too small and you don't want to confuse the user. To do this, we can click on select data. Now we have a list of every single subcategory mentioned here. So I want to deselect bookcases, chairs, and let's just say envelopes. Excellent. And this way you notice that despite the fact that our data range is selecting all the 17, the chart will not show us all the 17 subcategories. Very handy when you're working with very small values and you don't want to present it in the chart. For now, I will undo it. You cannot sort the chart directly. For example, if you want to see all the subcategories in a descending order, there is no option available on Excel that permits you to do that. If you want to sort the categories, then you have to go back to the original data set, apply a filter, then we will sort it in a descending order. And when you sort the original data, that is when the chart will get sorted. I know it's not the best approach, but unfortunately, Excel does not give you an opportunity to sort the data on the chart directly. Here we also have different chart styles available. Now, some of these are a little tacky, some of them are professional. I will let you decide which ones you should be using, but you should know that there are quite a number of styles available and you should definitely have a look at them. Perhaps you might find something that you like. Let's say we have selected perhaps this one. We don't like the color, so I can click on change colors and we can choose the color of the bars here. So we get a very neon like effect here. In quick layout, again we have these 11 options and we can choose how different elements on the chart will appear. So you notice that in the first one, which is layout one, it says there is a title, the legend is on the right, horizontal axis, vertical axis, and major grid lines. And if you go through the others, you notice that in every single layout, the elements are moving a little bit. For example, in this one, there is no legend. Here again, you notice we have chart title, right legend, horizontal axis, vertical axis, and major grid lines. So the difference here can be seen. It's very subtle, but you can see that every time you select a different layout, the chart looks a little different. For example, in layout 5, there is also a table that appears at the bottom that tells you the actual numbers. So let me undo both the layout and the style. To make any modifications on the chart, there are three ways to do this. Number one, you can select the plus sign that appears in the top right corner. And here you notice we have axis, axis title, data label, data table, so on and so forth. For example, if you want to add a data label, I can simply click on the arrow and then select center. And if you notice, the data label appears. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing this would be to click on chart design. At the top left, select add chart element. And you can see that all the different chart elements are available here as well. So I can select data label and then select center and we get the same result. Do remember that each one of these elements also has an advanced option. For example, if I go to data label and I select more data label options, then a pane opens up on the right side. And if you look carefully, this pane gives us even more options. For example, I can define different types of alignment, size, properties, shadow, glow, fill options. If I click on chart options, I can even select, let us say, my sales data series. And here again, we can choose options to reduce or increase the gap width. We can change the series overlap. So we won't do every single one, but I will take you through all the important ones as the course progresses. For now, it is important for you to know that to make changes to the elements on a chart, you have two options. The first one would be to simply select the plus sign that appears. The second one is to click on chart element and select an option from here. The third option is the one that I usually like to use. In this one, I simply double click on the element that I want to modify. For example, you would notice that none of my numbers are crossing 100,000. So it doesn't really make sense for me to have a primary y-axis till 120,000. How do we change this? Now, if I want to change the value to 100,000, one option for us would be to click on chart element, select my axis, and then click on more axis options. Once I do that, we can then select my axis, which would be, okay, let me do that once again. So we go back to chart element, we select axis and we choose our axis options. As you can see, I have a little bit of difficulty finding the right option, and this is exactly why I prefer the third approach, which would be to simply double click on the element that you want to modify. For example, here I want to modify the primary y-axis value. So we can double click on it and you notice that it directly takes me to the corresponding options. So it has opened axis options for me, which is vertical value axis. If we do that once again, you notice I have to click on chart element, select axis, click on more axis options. Once I've done that, then I have to again go here and then pick and choose the one I want, which is vertical value axis. So it's not that it can't be done manually, but I personally like the fact that you can simply double click on any element to modify it. How do we change this? We can simply change the maximum value to 100,000 and press enter. And now you notice that it is not using an auto maximum, it is using 100,000 as the maximum. Let's see some other options now. If I double click on any one of the single data bars, which is the column, I can change the gap width. So if I increase the gap width, then the bars become thinner. And if I decrease it, then, or rather, these are called the columns. So the columns become thinner or the columns become thicker. If I keep it at 0%, then obviously there is no spacing between any of these columns. And this really would not be the best way of presenting the data. In this case, we can go to format, apply a shape outline, let us say a white color. I'll also increase the weight. And now you notice all the bars can be seen clearly. For that matter, we can also apply a shape outline of a different color. Maybe I want a black color like this. Especially when you're keeping a zero gap width, always remember to keep a shape outline. If you want to change the color of these bars, you can simply click on Format, Shape Fill, and then choose a different color. But if you want to change the color of a single column, you will have to click, wait for 2 seconds, and then click once again. If you notice, I've only selected paper, which is this one. Please remember, you're not supposed to double click. A lot of people make this mistake. Remember, if you select a chart and you double click, then the options will open up. What we want to do here is to simply click, wait for 2 seconds and click once again. And now I can individually go and then color it differently like this. If we double click on the horizontal axis, there are a few options available here. So I can go to alignment and I can change the text direction to, let's say, rotate all text 270 degrees. So it appears perfectly horizontal like this. And I'm sure you agree that it looks a lot better than earlier. So like I said earlier, I will not be covering each and every option because it's not possible to do that. So far, you have understood the basic idea. You've seen how many options are available and the depth of options that are available. So please spend some time before you go and run and learn more charts. It's very important to get comfortable with all the options that are available. Before we end this lecture, let's quickly do a stat and a 100% column chart as well. So I select the data, insert, select all charts, and we will not select the first one, which is our clustered column. We will choose the second one, which is a stat column. What is the difference? Here you notice that it is not showing every single bar separately. It is showing 4 elements in a bar. What is our data? This time we have 5 subcategories and we have 4 quarters, Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4, which means that each one of these colors is representing a separate quarter. So blue is quarter 1, orange is quarter 2, gray is quarter 3 and yellow is quarter 4. If we go to chart design and switch the row and column, what happens is that now every single column is representing a quarter and there are 5 colors on each of the quarters, which is representing 5 different subcategories. Remember, there is nothing right or wrong here. Both of them are completely correct. Whether you want to present 5 columns for the 5 subcategories or whether you want to present 4 columns for the 4 quarters is completely up to you. Now, if you notice, the number can be seen as well. If I click on chart element, data label, and I add the number, you can see the numbers. But let me show you a slight variation. So I simply copy and paste the chart, right? So remember, the one on the right is my column chart, which is my stat column. And in the first one, we want to change this not to a stat column, but to the third one, which is a 100% stat column. Now look at the subtle difference. In the 100% stat column, my primary y-axis, which earlier was showing us a number, has now changed to percentages. This means that it is telling us that this value, which is bookcases, is about 22% of the total sales in quarter one. Now, here you notice that while it is showing us a number, the percentages are not very apparent. And that's the advantage of looking at the 100% stat column. For example, if you are looking at appliances, which is this light blue color, you will notice that the proportion has increased, then it remained flat, and then it decreased a little bit like this. And this again would not have been very apparent if you were looking at the normal stat column. Now, this is not to say that the normal stat column is bad and we should not use it, but I personally feel that using the 100% stat column chart gives a much better representation. Of course, you will have to try this with your own data sets to see which one you prefer over the other one. Before we finalize this lecture, let's also see how we can create a normal column chart with a data set like this, where we have 5 subcategories and 4 quarters. So if we click on insert and then select our very first chart, which is our clustered column chart. Now my clustered column appears like this, which means that now we don't have a single column like earlier. Here we had one single column for every subcategory. Here we have 4 columns for every cluster. This means that every cluster is one subcategory and every subcategory has 4 different columns in it, right? And looks excellent. So in this lecture, I've shown you how to create your first 3 charts: clustered, stacked, and 100% column. We saw how different options can be selected, how we can choose different styles, and how we can change the colors as well. Again, when to use which one, I can't tell you. It really depends on what type of projects you're working on. For example, there are some cases where my client just wants a simple chart like this, and I prefer to use a single color with different shades in it rather than making it multicolored. But it really depends on how you want to present it to the client. You have to do a lot of hit and trial, because the more you practice, the better you will understand how to customize the chart to do exactly what you want.